Welcome in to the 48 Minutes podcast on Believe. I'm Ross Geiger, the former NBA video coordinator, and I'm joined alongside Bruce Bernstein, our four-time Emmy Award winner who spent more than 3 decades at ESPN producing NBA shows, SportsCenter, and soaking up knowledge from the best hoop analysts in the business. Also joining us is the 2-time Emmy Award winner, Michael World B. Freer, who's a senior writer at Stat Factor, specializing in writing advanced statistical NBA reports for various announcers across the league. This is episode number 219, the Luka Doncic episode, as the one-time Dallas Maverick won the NBA's Rookie of the Year award in 2019. Luka was the last Maverick to win Rookie of the Year honors, but there seems to be a good chance a young man by the name of Cooper Flagg might be following in his footsteps. We'll see if that holds out true this year. Now, before we get things going, Bruce, welcome back to the show.
Hey, it's great to be back with you guys. Thanks for holding it down while I was down in the South Florida Bureau last month. But I'm back here in the frozen Northeast and very excited to be back with you guys.
Awesome. And speaking of holding it down, let's talk about the Toronto Raptors, who held it down on their West Coast trip. They just wrapped up a 4-1 road trip out west. And, they lost the first leg of that trip against the Lakers, but then rattled off 4 straight victories. Victories over the Warriors, Kings, Blazers, and capped it up on Sunday night with a huge road victory over the Thunder. The Raptors now find themselves with the third best record in the Eastern Conference, believe it or not, at 29-19. So, World B, I'll start with you with the Raptors. How impressed have you been with what they've been able to do here recently?
Very much. They weren't really considered, for me, before the season, much of a factor, just because I said before, I didn't know how Brandon Ingram would fit into the rest of that crew. He's fitting well. They're obviously playing as well as you can play. They're really doing it with defense here. They're really solid at the defensive end. I think they're top 5. They're 4th, I believe, in defensive efficiency. But the last 3 games of that 4-game win streak, they're holding opponents to less than 100 points per 100 a point per possession. So they're really getting the job done. Emmanuel quickly, I'm glad to see he's not saving all his big shots for my Knicks. He's coming up with big ones. He had the other night against was it the Warriors, or I'm sorry, OKC,
Sacramento, and OKC.
Yeah, he had some big shots against OKC, 2 against OKC, in the 3-pointers in the closing minutes there to really wrap it up. So they're playing really well, and we remember the Raptors as being a really good defensive team when Nick Nurse is there, and they're certainly doing that again, being top 5 in efficiency.
Yep. Bruce, what's your thoughts on Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, I'm basically, in support of everything World B said. One of the signs of a good team is the ability to beat a good team on the road on a night when their own shooting and scoring are off. And it requires tough defense, aggressive rebounding, and taking care of the ball, oh, by the way. And on Sunday, the Raptors went into OKC and they showed they're a good team. They only shot 43% from the floor, but they out-rebounded the Thunder 51-37. They had 10 steals and just 11 turnovers, and they held OKC to 19 points below their average on just 44% shooting and 26% from downtown. And look, one other thing. Toronto's road record is 16-9. It's the 4th best road record, trailing only Detroit, OKC, and Denver. And that Sunday win was their 4th straight on the road, as Ross mentioned in his introduction. And God almighty, was I ever wrong about this team. They are so much better than I thought they were going to be heading into the season. So all credit goes to their players and their staff.
Yeah, tons of credit going to Coach Darko and that team that really has a lot of buy-in right now to what they're doing out there on the floor. I had the chance to watch a couple of these games while they were out west, due to the timing on that. And I'm really loving the style of play that I'm seeing from them. I mean, they've been forced to play small ball with starting center Jakob Poeltl out due to injury. So this group is doing a fantastic job moving the basketball in a 4-out, 1-in offensive set. They're utilizing Scotty Barnes as a creator inside the arc. He's kind of slashing, moving from elbow to elbow, which has been fun to see. And on the defensive side of the ball, I mean, you guys both talked about their defense and limiting teams that are usually good at offense to low point outage. This group has been applying a ton of ball pressure because they are going small and picking up full court. Leading the charge with defensive pressure has to be the second-year guard, Jamal Shed, who's picked up at least one steal in each of their last 8 games. I've seen him pick guys in the backcourt of some of these games. I believe he did that in Sacramento on this road trip. But the only big seeing significant time right now is Sandro Mamukelashvili. I butchered that, but
no, you didn't. You did not.
I did my best for Zaza there to get that right.
No, you did it good.
But Mamu, as he goes by, he's a stretch 5, so he's been a huge difference maker for this team. He even recently had a team high 22 points in their road win over the Blazers on Friday night, which was another impressive win for this bunch, being out on the road in Portland. So a lot of good things going on for Toronto right now, and I think they can keep this going.
Look, the Knicks might be looking up at him pretty soon.
They are
right now.
They are already.
They hope
and
not stay behind them. Yeah.
And there's a big matchup this week. They meet up this week on a Wednesday, and we'll see. We'll see what each team is made of. Really, at that point, Toronto's got to find an offense against the Knicks. So they're barely scoring over a point per possession over 2 games against the Knicks. I know the defense has really picked it up, and the defense is good to have right now against the Knicks, whose offense is really scatterbrained. We'll just call it at the moment. But so they don't need a improvement on the offensive end, but would really go a long way if they want to really establish themselves as above the Knicks overall this season, which they can do with a nice win on this week.
Yeah, that'll be a nice matchup here in the Eastern Conference later on. Now, staying out east, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls, who are getting their act together once again with 4 straight wins. And, of course, over the weekend as well, Derrick Rose had his jersey retired by the team on Saturday night in a home win over Bruce's Celtics. So, Bruce, I'll start with you on this one. I'm sure you at least caught the highlights and some of the Derrick Rose stuff. What was your overall thoughts and how Chicago has been playing here recently?
Hey, look, remember they started the season 5-0. Then they went ice cold. They lost 14 out of their next 18 over a 5-week period. And they kind of bottomed out when they got to 9-14. But since then, they've won 14 out of 22, including their last 4 in a row. Kobe White has led them in scoring each of those 4 straight wins. And heading into Monday's home game against the Lakers, they stood at 23-22. I mean, 9th in the East and just a game and a half out of 6. So in that Saturday game against the Celtics, they had 8 players in double figures. And they won the game on a 3-pointer by Kevin Huerter with under a second left after they couldn't throw it into ocean from downtown the whole 4th quarter. But you know what? When it mattered, Kevin Huerter came through. And look, they're getting a little, well, not a little. They're getting an important player back. Josh Giddey returned last week after missing 3 weeks with that hamstring injury. And, he's still shaking off the rust. But a bunch of other guys have stepped up, They're a solid defensive rebounding team. They share the ball. They play up-tempo. They're not afraid to take a 3. They don't always make them, but it kind of reminds me of Boston a little bit. They're not afraid to take them. And Billy Donovan plays 11 guys, an average of 18 minutes or more, which is good insurance against injuries. So I would say watch out for the Bulls in the second half of the season. Now, finally, Derrick Rose getting that number retired on Saturday. 5th Bull to have that honor. MJ, Scottie Pippen, Jerry Sloan, and Bob Butterbean Love. Before his injuries, Derrick Rose was just one of the most electric players in the game. He was Rookie of the Year. By his 3rd year, he was the MVP, I think the youngest guy ever to win it. He was never his old explosive self, though, after that knee injury in 2012. But still, he played 12 more productive seasons in the league and even finished in the top 10 of MVP voting in 2021. That's just 5 years ago. Top 10 in the MVP voting. I do believe, and I've said this on a number of occasions, he will eventually be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. He deserves to be there. He's had a great career, a courageous guy, the ultimate example of what might have been if not for that knee injury.
Yeah, no doubt about it. World B, what's your thoughts on Chicago?
Well, entering Monday, I mean, their offense in January is really what's vaulted them to the top, or to the playoff discussion, if you will, in the Eastern Conference, because they're right where we always think they're going to be. They're 9th, they're 8th, they're 10th. This is where we expect the Bulls to be every preseason. This is where we expect them to be. But it's the way they're doing it right now. They're one of the best offensive teams this month. And it's been gradually improving since about November. They're scoring about 6 more points for 100 possessions since November. They're shooting the ball really well. During this 4-game win streak entering Monday, they were shooting over 40% in each game from 3-point range. So they really got that going. Bruce is right. Kobe White has been outstanding during this 4-game win streak, shooting over 50% from 3-point range, taking a lot more threes too. He wasn't taking a whole lot. He wasn't making a whole lot early on. Now he can't be stopped. He's one of those guys. He gets on those rolls, and you got to ride it out as long as you can. Like I said, their defense is really a struggle, and it has been most of the season. But their offense began the month in the bottom half of the league, 21st, and now they're in the upper half, and they're 15th or 14th in efficiency. That's quite an improvement for just a month's work.
Yeah, and now the Bulls' next 5 games are rather interesting as they're hosting the Lakers here on Monday night. As of taping, they trail the Lakers by 3 here late in the third quarter. So that one's still up for grabs. And then they hit the road to play the Pacers in Indy before facing the Heat for 3 straight games with 1 matchup at home and 2 on the road. So we'll see kind of how they fare in this next 5. But if they keep this momentum up and get a nice big win at home against the Lakers here, I think they can definitely keep this forward momentum heading into Indiana and then beyond that with the Miami Heat. So let's keep an eye out on the Bulls. Now, next up, let's switch gears here. Go to the Western Conference. Talk about the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, we've mentioned them, I think, on back-to-back shows now, but they are just keeping it rolling. They're now 15-3 in their last 18. They're currently positioned in the last and final playoff spot or play-in spot out west. But Bruce, I mean, this group, we kind of wrote them off earlier this season just due to the injuries and how old they were, but they seem to have some type of recipe working in their favor now.
Well, you're talking about when they started at 6-21, and on December 18th, that was their record. And as you mentioned, they've gone 15-3 in their last 18 games. But interestingly, 12 out of those 13 of those 18 games have been at home, and they're 12-1 in those home games. So it might be that they've really gotten a little recent kind of reprieve from the scheduling gods. But they are up to 10th in the West. But they're about to start a stretch of 7 road games in the next 10 games. That begins on Tuesday night. And there are some tough opponents in there. Denver and Houston twice each, plus the Lakers, the Wolves, the Cavaliers, and the Suns. And Book hopefully would be back by the time that game rolls around. So I think we're really going to know what the Clippers really look like after 3 more weeks. If they can go 7-3 in those 10 games and make it to 500, we are looking at a dangerous team as long as their health holds up.
Yeah, totally. I think if they were able to get back to 500 after this stretch, as you mentioned, we definitely should be taking them for real. World B, your thoughts on the Clips?
I mean, the most amazing thing is it's been like they've gone 15-3 in 37 days. They've gone from just being an embarrassment to being a factor. I mean, it's really you thought they were in trouble when they sent Kawhi Leonard home. Didn't matter. Everybody beats the Nets these days, but I mean, they really put a number on them recently. On Sunday, they beat the heck out of them almost by 40. The win over LA, the Lakers, was a big one for them, and their only loss in the last couple of weeks was to the Chicago team that we talked about is on fire. And then, back in early January, they lose to the Knicks when they got, the Knicks really gave it to them in the second half. That's been it for the last couple of weeks. It's really been an impressive run, and they need the depth that we thought they would have, all these old guys or whatever. They're getting, now it's John Collins that's having a great season, really picking it up for them along with Kawhi. Kawhi's just having an amazing run if he can stay healthy. I don't put it past this team going forward as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah, John Collins is taking advantage of this opportunity that he's had in place this year with the Clippers coming over from the Utah Jazz and trying to be a difference maker for a group that could certainly need it, especially in games where Kawhi Leonard's not available, and certainly, they missed the role that Norman Powell played on this team just a year ago, and Brad Beal wasn't able to fill that void, unfortunately, due to his own injuries. So to see John Collins step up for this group, and James Harden still playing some pretty solid basketball himself, if they can stay healthy, they could be a team to keep an eye on for sure. Now, one other team out west that is definitely rolling right now is the Portland Trailblazers. They have now won 7 of their last 10 games. Going into Monday night, they are playing Bruce's Celtics in Boston. They are down 20 here at the start of the third quarter, but they're now back at 500, Bruce. So what's your big takeaway from this young Blazers group?
Well, heading into the season, Vegas had the over-under for this team for wins at 34.5, even though the Blazers had won 36 last season and had a young team that should only get better. Now, tonight they're getting it handed to them by the Celtics, but Denny Avdia hasn't played. And Avdia and Toumani Camara, they're both just 25. Shaedon Sharpe, 22. Donovan Clingan, 21. And he's averaging a double-double now. He's really, grown a lot, I think, as a player. And, the forgotten man is Scoot Henderson. I mean, 2 years ago, this guy was going to be like the next big thing. He hasn't played. He injured his hamstring in September. He was expected to be out 1 or 2 months. He has yet to play a game. So who even knows what's going on there? And Tiago Splitter, their rookie coach, he took over for Chauncey Billups. He's done a really good job under some pretty tough circumstances. Yep. Earlier this month, they had a nice streak of 7 wins in 8 games, and that included W's over the Spurs, the Rockets twice, and the Lakers. So we're recording the show prior to the end of their game at Boston on Monday night. And like I said, they're getting it handed to them. But they beat Boston back in December out in Portland. So these guys really are coming on strong. And I think it's great to see a team like this growing up together before our eyes.
No doubt. World B?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the offense with them. That's their offense. They're having their best offensive month of the season in terms of efficiency. So they're still bottom 10 for the season in offense, and they're actually bottom half of the league in defense. But it's all getting better. And Bruce mentioned, not having Denny on the court is a real problem for them. They're just offensively not a good team when he's not on it. They're barely over a point per possession when he's off the court. Even when he's healthy, when he's off the court, he's on the bench. They just don't have much of an offensive game. So it's a great run by them. Want to see it, continue. We saw it happen last year at the end of the second half of the year. That was based on defense for them. They had one of the best defenses after the All-Star break. This year, right now, this month, it's been about their offense improvement. But, they need Denny on the court to have a shot really going forward.
Yeah, and I think their success all falls on Denny getting back healthy sooner rather than later, especially given this stretch out on the East Coast road trip. But a guy I wanted to highlight with the Portland Trailblazers who's done a phenomenal job, not a guy that we've talked about once this year, and not a lot of other media members talking about it either, Caleb Love. He has come out of nowhere for this group, really having a very productive year off the bench, filling in the starting role at times. And he's just a gunner. He's almost like, he reminds me a lot of Buddy Hield. He's never seen a shot he doesn't like, but this is a group that needs a scorer out there. And Caleb Love has delivered thus far this year. He's averaging just a hair over 11 points a game for this group. He's had his 20-point outburst from time to time. And he adds that perimeter shooting element that the Blazers lack at times, especially when Denny's out there on the floor. Toumani Camara outside of the corner is not a guy you really want to see taking a lot of threes. And there's only so many shots and attention that Shaedon Sharpe's going to get loose for some open looks. So he has been a big difference maker to help kind of space the floor out for this group and help others get to their spots as well. So keep an eye on Caleb Love if you're able to catch a Blazers game coming up here soon.
Not bad for an undrafted rookie.
No, not at all. No, he has definitely delivered for this group and seems to be a nice bargain for the Blazers moving forward.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on. Let's go ahead and talk about something very unfortunate that happened mostly over the weekend, and that was we got a flurry of big-name injuries this past weekend. First of all, we had Giannis, who suffered a calf injury. He's set to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks. Devin Booker set to miss at least a week with a sprained ankle. And in that same game, Jalen Green returned for just one game in a Suns uniform before he suffered a hamstring injury. So that moved him back to the injured list yet again. But Green is considered day-to-day, so we'll see how long that will be. Ja Morant suffered a UCLA sprain. Jonathan Kuminga had an MRI after the Warriors faced the Mavericks, and he suffered a bone bruise in his knee and is likely out until the trade deadline. So this is some crazy stuff, Bruce, especially considering the timing with the trade deadline looming here on February 5th.
Well, this whole Giannis thing, I mean, there's definitely some intrigue, I believe, going on here. I mean, he injured his right calf against the Nuggets on Friday. He self-diagnosed his timetable for returning before even having an MRI and knowing what the actual medical condition was. But look, there's no doubt he knows his body as well as anyone can know their body. I mean, a guy like that, you just know he does. But combined with some of his recent statements about the state of the team and his frustration with losing, you got to wonder if the end is near for the Greek freak in Milwaukee. He expects to be out 4 to 6 weeks, which pretty much guarantees the Bucks a spot in the draft lottery this spring. There are no bigger fans of Giannis than the three of us, especially Ross, who's a dear friend. But it just feels like the relationship between the player and the team is coming to the end, and they're just not into each other like they once were.
Yeah, no, I was watching that game on Friday night against the Denver Nuggets, a game where, of course, the Joker was out. Jamal Murray was out in this one as well, and Bucks lost that one at home. Of course, Giannis went down late in that. But the one thing I will say about the injury to Giannis and how he was able to self-diagnose that is he's had multiple calf strains in the past. That was the one that he most recently went down earlier this season as well. So he does know his body better than anyone, one. And two, if he felt the same type of pop in the calf and he was moving about similar to how he was during the injury prior, I think it's fair. It's a fair assessment. He kind of knows the drill for what it's going to take for him to get back at least full, somewhat near full strength to play and compete at a high level. But World B, I'm curious. You were one of the biggest Bucks believers on our show heading into the season. I mean, where are you at with this Bucks group?
It's a train wreck. I mean, there's no way around there. I mean, there's not, without Giannis, there's no redeeming quality about this team, offensively, defensively, coaching. I mean, there's nothing to hang your hat on about, if this team does this, if this team does, they have to improve in so many different areas. It's just such a lousy, they've tried. I mean, the Damian Lillard thing is just a disaster, and it's going to carry through the next few seasons for them. That mistake that they have tried to get help for Giannis, and it blew up in their face, and now they're going to pay for it for years to come, even if Giannis is no longer Buck going forward. But the whole calf injury thing, it is, as we've discovered, if you don't fully cure that and come back healthy, that's what leads to the Achilles injury that follows. And we saw it in the finals. We saw it with Tatum in the playoffs against the Knicks, but we really saw it in the finals with Halliburton. When he had a calf injury, he tried to play through it, tried to come back, and it spurred on the Achilles injury that it has him out for the whole year. So I think when you have a calf injury, that's the warning time that take care of this, because it can lead to bigger, worse things if you do not treat it. The Jonathan Kuminga thing to me is, it leaves you dumbfounded, his situation. Like he was ready. He wants to be traded. He was in perfect position to be traded after Jimmy Butler, who we didn't mention, torn ACL, is out for the year. This is his opportunity to not only contribute to this team, but showcase his talent. So maybe the Warriors finally do trade him, and he's putting in points in limited minutes. He can put in 30 points in less than 25 minutes. We saw it. And then he goes down with his knee injury. And now and when they need him the most now, he's unavailable. So it's just a rotten string of injury luck for the Warriors, who I said just last week, that was the team I was paying attention. They got one more run in them, And since then, they've lost two of their key players.
Poor Kuminga. I mean, what a train wreck of a season. Now, I believe it started in the offseason with the whole drawn-out contract stuff where the team couldn't really complete some of the moves they wanted to make until they kind of had his number sort of, zeroed in on and they knew what they'd be able to do. But, he was a healthy scratch for 16 games in a row. And it looked like he would, once again, be a key guy after Jimmy Butler went down, and World B just talked about it, but his revival lasted one full game and 9 minutes of a second game, okay, when he hurt his left knee against the Mavs. He's going to be reevaluated in the coming days. And look, we know that, they'd love to trade him if they could get something worthwhile, because his falling out with Steve Kerr is permanent. It is never going to be fixed. He's got to go. He's got to move on. But we'll see if anybody wants to be interested in a 23-year-old talent with 34 games of playoff experience and a championship ring. I mean, that should matter somewhere, somehow, to somebody.
By the way, I'm sorry, Russ. I can't figure. This is one of the most confusing stories that I can think about. Why isn't he playing? I mean, how can teams not line up to get him? He's got, obviously he can put the ball in the basket, he can put up numbers, and what? It's just so many questions surrounding this. What is Steve Kerr's problem with him? Is basically what it comes down to. That's really what it comes down to. What is Steve Kerr's problem with Jonathan Kuminga? I can't figure it out.
I almost wonder, because Steve Kerr is not exactly known for doing guys dirty. I mean, he's a player's coach, it's uncharacteristic. So I'm wondering, is it coming from above and he's being put in the position to say, you know what, if you want to continue coaching this team, here's how we want you to handle Kuminga, because there's got to be bad blood between management and Kuminga after that whole drawn out thing in the summer. It held the team hostage in being able to do things that could have maybe made them better. But because that was such an open, festering sore, it held them back. So I can't imagine Steve Kerr can hate on this guy the way it seems like he is. I believe it's coming from above, and Kerr's kind of stuck in the middle with this one.
Now, didn't they not also, when they were trying to sign the qualifying offer, want Jonathan Kuminga to get rid of his no trade clause, which is, I guess, standard, and he wouldn't do it. I wouldn't either, by the way. If you're jerking me around like this the whole time. So I don't think it was Jonathan Kuminga stringing them along. I think it was the Warriors playing hardball with Kuminga, waiting and trying to get him to finally waive that no trade, and he wouldn't do it, and I wouldn't either. Now, Kuminga didn't get any offers anywhere else, so he had no choice. He eventually, did his deal. Now next year, I believe next year will be. Oh, he's got. Is it a team option after this year, or is it a player option? I thought it was a 2-year deal he signed.
It's a player option, I think.
Yeah, so he'll be out the door next year.
Yeah. I think they showed their true colors this past week when the general manager, Mike Dunleavy, was asked about the trade demand from Jonathan Kuminga. He said, it's one thing to make a trade demand, but you got to have a demand on the market in order to make that kind of request. And so he was kind of coming out of the gate swinging at Kuminga too. So it's just an ugly situation from both sides. The divorce needs to happen. I'm with you guys. I'm a little dumbfounded why there isn't a couple teams or at least more suitors rumored to have interest in adding a guy like Kuminga, because I too think he is someone that could help a lot of these teams out there looking for some youth. Now, the other guy I wanted to talk about here, Bruce, Ja Morant. I mean, he was another guy, rumored to possibly be traded at this year's deadline. He's now here. He's now hurt. So what are your thoughts on Ja?
His turbulent season hit another rough spot with his latest injury, a ligament strain in his left elbow, which actually happened when he made a really good defensive play. That'll teach him. What are you doing? He won't return until after the trade deadline, and he is expected to miss 3 weeks. And, it was a great defensive play, like a chase down type of a play against Atlanta. Now, the Grizzlies have been entertaining offers for Ja, who claims he wants to stay in Memphis. But the Grizz have lost 11 of 16, and they're 11th in the West. They still compete on a lot of nights, and they're actually hanging in there and don't get blown out of games, but they don't win them either. So a lot of their losses were close games. They seem like a candidate for a reset. And look, we know that they got a boatload of assets when they traded Desmond Bane to Orlando over the summer. So there's going to be new blood coming in there. And the question is, does management want Morant to be leading that new blood, or do they want to get more new blood and let somebody else be the leader of the team? Maybe Jaren Jackson Jr. or somebody else. I don't know. I think, they're never going to get the kind of deal they got for Desmond Bane. But I think, again, maybe it's just time.
Yeah. Will there be any thoughts on that situation in Memphis?
Well, Bruce is right. But as far as Memphis goes, they continue to play hard all the time. I mean, 27 games there, have clutch minutes in them this year. And as Bruce mentioned, though, they're 10-17, and their offense just totally goes in the tank in those tight moments. Now, with having a healthy Ja Morant turn things around there, I gotta believe he would have turn that record, at least make it more closer to 500 with him on the court. Yeah, it's kind of like Giannis. You feel like the end is near there in terms of his time with with Memphis. That era looks like it's coming to an end. I don't foresee any shortage of suitors for him if it's not at the trade deadline in the offseason, whatever you want to call it. And I think his career. Here's the other thing too about him. Please develop a jump shot, Ja Morant.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nobody in this game of the superstar status who's a worse shooter from 3-point range, who takes them worse than Ja Morant. He's literally the worst shooter in the league from the perimeter. He's just got to fix that. If you want to get back to being especially in this era of basketball, if you want to get back to being a superstar level player, you got to make some shots. And it's not going to stop people from wanting to get him, but it's going to keep him from being a superstar again, I believe.
Yeah. So we've talked about Giannis, we've talked about Ja, and we talked about Kuminga. Last question for you guys on this topic. Will either of them get traded at this year's deadline, Bruce?
I would say the least likely to be traded is Giannis. Okay.
Sure.
Kuminga, they'd love to trade, but they've shown they're not going to give him away. So that probably leaves Ja, who they might, he might be the first of those three to be traded. But my predictions aren't really worth anything except my own opinion, which isn't really dialed into anyone in particular in any of those teams.
Okay. Will B, what's your thoughts? Do you see any of those guys getting traded, or will they stand still at the deadline?
I think they're going to stay where they are. Everything's going to be straightened out in the offseason. There's just the injury factor. I don't know, even if they were healthy, if any of them would be traded. Maybe Ja would. But I don't know if any of them would be if healthy would get traded anyway. Mm-hmm. I think this is something that will be handled in the offseason. I think, as you mentioned, with Desmond Bane and the draft picks, where I think that's with the draft coming up, I think that's going to factor in to a lot of any deals going forward. They're going to stay where they are. Just ride out the injuries and ride out the season.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be kind of a boring deadline. Not a lot of big names on the move this year, but still probably enough, role pieces moving around the chessboard to, have some fun discussions and get excited about a few teams here. But minor tweaks, nothing major happening around the deadline, at least as of right now. Now, before we go to our final thoughts, World B, I do need to clear something up with you. You said you did have a no trade clause, or you would want one.
If I were Ja Morant, I would absolutely not waive my no trade clause. I want to be able to decide, where I want to go, or I get to decide where I want to go. You can't just trade me.
Bruce and I were thinking about trading you to a Kings podcast. You could talk about Sacramento Kings.
Or the Hornets podcast too, because they're finally a team that they're one team that you follow that is headed in the right direction right now.
Well, now I get to decide. I get to decide if I want to. Otherwise, you're stuck with me for another week or two. So
I should have done more research. I didn't know you had that in your back pocket.
Look at your contract.
Yeah. All right.
Day to day. Everybody on this team is day to day.
We're all day to
maybe
day.
Even minute to minute.
And with that, let's go ahead and get into our final thoughts. You guys always forget about the gong. It's going to come each time now. I'm not going to forget about playing that little soundbite there. But World B, why don't you lead us off here tonight on final thoughts?
Well, my final thought is on believe it or not, the Philadelphia 76ers. Monday's embarrassing loss notwithstanding here to the Charlotte Hornets, but I still remain in the camp of, as I said in the preseason, if this team is healthy, when it comes to their potential playoff run or whatever, it all comes down to whether this team is healthy. They sit Embiid and Paul George on Monday, and they paid the price because they were embarrassed by the Hornets, who, let's be honest, have been embarrassing some teams lately. But Philadelphia is just the latest. But you know what? They were as healthy as they've been all year on Saturday against the Knicks at home. And what I saw out of that game was Joel Embiid dominating as he, had been during his MVP, during his scoring leader days. I saw Tyrese Maxey doing it at both ends. And I saw VJ Edgecombe once again not play like a rookie. And so they didn't get the win, but it was a tight game all throughout. And like I said, MD was unstoppable once again, 38 and 11. I'm still in the camp of, if this team is healthy at playoff time, wherever their position is, I know it's been forever, a quarter of a century since they reached the conference finals. But if you get this team, with everybody in the lineup and ready to go for the playoffs, there aren't too many teams, with the East being the way it is, maybe the Pistons, maybe the Celtics. I'm not convinced yet. But after that, I don't want to play the Philadelphia 76ers.
No. I was about to say, just as a follow-up thought with everything you were just mentioning there, they would be in my top 3 of teams I do not want to face in a 7-game series. That's for sure. Great points there, World B. I'm going to go next here and let Bruce go last here tonight. And mine is on the painful season that the Milwaukee Bucks are having. Of course, the basketball on the court hasn't been what everyone anticipated and hoped for this year. The Bucks are now 8 games below 500. Giannis is out for at least the next month, as we've discussed here tonight. And of course, the continued rumblings of Giannis's uncertain future in town just continue to grow as the days go on. So to make matters worse, this past weekend, Milwaukee was one of the many cities that were affected by a massive winter storm, which I'm sure everyone listening has heard about by now. And ultimately, they had their Sunday home game against the Mavericks canceled because the Mavericks couldn't even fly into Milwaukee. It was just that bad. So with all this unfortunate news and all the negativity kind of surrounding the season with the Bucks, I was really happy that a good story did come out of a very unfortunate situation with this storm and a game cancellation. The Bucks organization decided to donate all the food that was prepared inside the Pfizer Forum in advance for Sunday's game to local shelters across the Milwaukee area. And so I just wanted to give a big hats off to the Milwaukee Bucks organization for taking the extra time and step forward to get the food delivered to those in need. Happy to hear it didn't go to waste and went to some very deserving people that might have been in a very tough spot during a storm like this. So kudos to the Milwaukee Bucks. The season might not be going the way you thought it could, but at least they're doing some impactful things off the court. Bruce?
Before I go to my final thought, I just want to point out to Philadelphia 76ers fans, you trailed Charlotte by 50 points after 3 quarters, okay?
Yeah.
In the second and third quarter, you were outscored 81 to 37, okay, in the second and third quarters. So really, you should hang your heads in shame. I mean, really, we should not hear any trash talk from Philadelphia fans for a while after that beatdown. Anyway, sorry, can't help it. Philadelphia, Anyway,
They're
journey
still crying
home,
about Saturday's loss, Bruce. Don't worry about Monday.
Yeah.
Well, I still think, I don't want to get off on a football tangent, but so we'll save it for the post-show discussion. Anyway, my final thought isn't about basketball. My wife and I were fortunate to spend just over a month in Florida between mid-December and last Thursday night. As we were planning our drive home on Friday and Saturday, we knew that covering almost 1,400 miles in 2 days was going to be challenging because of that monster storm that Ross alluded to that kind of traveled from west to east, covering like most of the country as it moved. It was crazy. But that storm was front and center in our planning. So after watching Weather Channel more than I was watching like NBA League Pass for almost a week, we headed north on Friday morning, hoping to make it from the West Palm Beach area to Lumberton, North Carolina, which is lower North Carolina, soon after South Carolina. This is a big town. Anyway, we left, headed north on Friday morning. The bad stuff from the storm was just beginning, but we kind of got away and it was behind us. So we made it cleanly to Lumberton. And then on Saturday, we had to leave Lumberton and head for our home in New England. And luckily for us, we missed the horrendous weather in the Carolinas and the Mid-Atlantic and made it home safely on Saturday night. But, eventually the storm caught up to us, dumping 17 inches of snow in our town on Sunday and Monday. We haven't left the house in 2 days. Compared to many others around the country that suffered power outages and carnage on the road and deaths, we were fortunate to be home when Snowmageddon arrived. But from 75-degree weather when we left on Friday to single-digit temperatures as I speak to you on Monday evening, I think of Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. She was so wrong when she said, "There's no place like home." She never lived in New England in January.
That is a good point. No, she definitely did not. I believe she lived in Kansas, if I remember correctly.
Yes, she was a Jayhawk.
She was a Jayhawk. Well, we're glad you got back safe and are back here with us on 48 Minutes. To all our listeners out there, stay safe and stay warm during this tough time, and we'll get through it together and hopefully watch some hoops that will be played across the league. So that will do it for this edition of the 48 Minutes podcast by Believe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back with you later on this week to be sure you're up to date in 48 on all things around the association. Take care, everybody.